אילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כילות. ואילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כילות. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלך מלכי המלכים, מלך מלכי המלכים, מלך מלכי המלכים. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלכנו. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלכנו.
אילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כילות. ואילו פינו מלא שיר הקיים ולשוננו רינה וידינו פרוסות כנשרי שמיים ורגלינו קלות כילות. מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך מלך מלכי המלכים, מלך מלכי המלכים, מלך מלכי המלכים. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך שמך מלכנו. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך ולברך את שמך אותך זה לא שינה, ומיד כשחזרתי הייתה לך הרגשה שאני עוד אוהב אותך, שאני כבר שלך, ואהבת ושמחת וחשבת שרציתי להיות שם תמיד בשבילך, כי ידעתי שככה זה טוב, שלשניים יהיה יותר פשוט לאהוב, כל הדרך אני לצידך. גם אני עוד שומע וגם אני לא יודע איך עושים את זה, איך שזה לא קל לאהוב ללא תנאי. והופתענו כשבא השינוי הגדול, והבטחנו תמיד לדבר, וראינו אחרי שבועות וימים שלא קל לעמוד מול הרגל.
For freedom, a day to release ourselves from our daily occupations and to embrace different occupations, to embrace the enterprise of creating holy time, a sacred time. This is a special Shabbat, Shabbat of Parashat Chayei Sarah, a Shabbat that describes one of the most beautiful and most romantic stories in the entire Torah. A story that sounds almost the story of Rebecca and Isaac, Rivka and Yitzchak, a story that sounds like the poem Lecha Dodi. They run toward each other and embrace each other. We run to the encounter of this love, of this beautiful, this different day. We run to the encounter of Shabbat, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala. We come to the encounter of the bride. I invite you to take two nerot, two Shabbos candles, and to prepare them as we, in one more moment, we will light our Shabbos candles. Have a cup of wine for Kiddush, and let's together transform this evening into a night of Shabbat, into a sacred time. We're on page 120.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We're on pages 130, 131. Lechuner anela Adonai. Let's come to the encounter of this joyful day with joy, and let's sing a new song, a song of personal transformation, of change. תגל הארץ ישמחו הים רבים, ענם בערפל סביבו, צדק ומשפט, מכון כיסאו. מזמור שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, כי נפלאות עשה. הושיעו לו, ימינו לו, בזרוע קודשו. Each of these psalms are steps, are rocks that help us get closer and closer to the experience of connecting with time. They are gifts that our tradition gives to us in order to fully enter this experience of transforming a night of Friday into a night of Shabbat. We're on page 134. Sambru l'Adonai.
Zamru l'Adonai bechino זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה, בכינור וכל זמרה.
זמרו
לאדוני בכינור,
זמרו בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה, בכינור וכל זמרה, בחצוצרות וכל שופר,
הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, בחצוצרות וכל שופר, הריעו לפני המלך אדוני, עיר הים אלוהים תבל ויושבה, נהרות חרוכה יחד עדים אלינו,
בחצוצרות וכל שופר,
הריעו להמלך אדוני, בחצוצרות וכל
שופר, הריעו לפני המלך אדוני. זמרו לאדוני בכינור, זמרו לאדוני בכינור, בכינור וכל זמרה, בכינור וכל זמרה. Mizmor LeDavid. We're on page 136, and it is a tradition in many communities to stand up for Psalm 29, to rise for Mizmor LeDavid. And wherever you are, you might be rising your spirit, on your legs. This is a reminder that we welcome Shabbat with our bodies, that we bring our full existence into the experience of welcoming Shabbat. So we give some attention to our bodies, we give some attention to our muscles. You might want to clap, you might want to stand up. Let's make sure that with our bodies we dance, we move, and we enter this experience of the seventh day.
מזמור לדוד, אהבו לאדוני ונהגים, אהבו לאדוני כבוד ועוז, אהבו לאדוני כבוד שמו, ישתחוו לאדוני בהרת קודש, ולאדוני אלמנים אל כבוד ליבי, אדוני, אדוני, אלמנים רבים, לאדוני בכוח, לאדוני בידיו, לאדוני שומר על הציפה ישמר לאדוני את ארצי הלבנון, הירפידם כמוהם לבנון וציריון כמו ברמים, לאדוני חוצר לעבוד אש, כל אדוני יכיר לי
Beloved, come to the encounter with the divine. Beloved, come to greet Shabbat Queen. We're on page 138, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala.
לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכר בדיבורך, השמיענו אל המלוכן. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, ושמו לתפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקום המלאכה. מראש מקדם נזוכה, זאת מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי. אורי, אורי, שתדברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך ניגע. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לא תבושי ולא תיכרי, מה תשכחי ומה תהמי. בך יחסו אני אאמין, ונפקדה ירדתי לה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי כלה, בואי כלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה, בני שבת נקבלה.
Shabbos, Shabbos, Shabbos is among us. I invite you to greet each other, to say Shabbat Shalom to each other, to take a moment to acknowledge each other's presence. I take this opportunity to say good Shabbos to those sitting here, to Gabriel, to Evan, to Zach, and to Jordan, and to all those that are sitting at home. You know, when you say good Shabbos in the comments, later on we see your comments, we see you were here, and it makes a real difference. So take a moment, acknowledge each other's presence. In these moments, one of the most wonderful things is we can have is to remember that we have community, that we are not alone. And now that we have acknowledged each other, let's give Shabbat one more song. We're on page 140, Mizmor Shir Leyom HaShabbat.
מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת. 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 מזמור שיר, שיר ליום השבת.
Mizmor Shir,
שיר ליום השבת.
Mizmor Shir,
שיר ליום השבת.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמך רבה.
אמן.
בעלמא דברה חילותי וימליך מלכותי
בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי תחום בית ישראל.
בהגנה, בהגנה, ובזמן קריב ואמרו
אמן. איש מרבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולם בעלמיה יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח, יתבהר מתרומם מתנשא, ויתהדר ויתהלל, ויתהלל שם לקודשה. נהלה מן כל ברכתה בשירתה, ושבחתה ונחמתה, תמיד אמרה אמרו ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בדברו מרהיב ערבים בחוכמה פותח שערים. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night. ומעביר יום ומהביא לילה ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו אל חי וקיים תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני עמדי ורבים.
אמן.
אהבת עולם אהבתנו. You have loved us with an everlasting love. You gave us your Torah and your mitzvot. You gave us an heritage of values, an invitation to think about how to live our lives. And as we ask to be closer to you, to become one with you, we think about all that is love in our lives. I invite you to close your eyes for a moment and to think about things, people, places, memories that symbolize love in your life. Try to gather each of them, bring them close to you, to your heart. I invite you to think of your breath for a moment, to breathe in and out. Once, during the cycle of breath awareness, try to count to 7. 7 days of the week, 7 cycles of creation. Now remember the things that you're holding close to your heart. As you breathe in, bring them in with your breath. Let them become a light that cleans all the things that don't need to be in your system, all the things that you don't need to carry in this Shabbos. And as you breathe in, you bring light. When you breathe out, you let the things that you don't need to keep, you let them go. Once again. As we are filled and surrounded by that love, we say, dear God, please never remove your love from us. בבטך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, blessed are you Adonai, who loves your people, Israel. We're on page 152 for the Shema. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
We continue with Ve'ahavta on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם נאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. ובאמונה כל סוד וקיים עלינו, כי הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ואין זולתו, ואנחנו ישראל. ובניו גבולתו, שכבודו לשמו, ומלכותו ורצון, כאילו עליהם, משה ומרים וישראל לך. When your children witness your presence, they pray. They praise your name in gratitude and they accepted your sovereignty. Moshe, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices with joy. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא לא תוסף אלה, מלכותך ראו בניך, פוגע ים לפני משה ומרים, סהלי אנו ועמלו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כפר אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיחסה ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, קהל ישראל. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, העמידנו שומרנו לחיים, לפרוס עלינו את שלומך, תקננו בעצה טובה מלפונך. Spread over us your shelter of peace, guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help.
Son
time for Tfilat Amidah. As we pray to find the words that we shall say, or Tfilah Shebalev, the prayer of our hearts. We pray to become those prayers.
Adonai Sfatai Tivtah, Ofi Yagid, Ofi Yagid, Tehilatecha.
תגיב על עולם אדוני, מחיים איתי אתה, רב לראשי, יהי דרגש, אחר כך חיים בחס, מחיים עדים ברחמים, לא סומך לפני ברחמים, וגיימת. אתה הקדוש ברוך הוא, אתה אדוני, אחיל הקדוש. קדוש השבה. רצוננו, כל ישראל ותפעלנו. מודים אנחנו לך אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו ואמותינו. יהי רצון אמרי פי, והגיון ליבי לפניך, אדוני, צורי וגואלי. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. עושה שלום במרומיו, ועושה שלום לנו ועל כל ישראל, במרו אמן. We find the ability to be in peace with each other, to make peace with each other. May we understand and we internalize the dignity of the difference. May we understand that when someone who is not like us is nonetheless like you, someone who is not in our image is nonetheless in your image. We take a moment to think of those that are dealing with illness in our community, illness in their bodies, illness in their souls. We think of those fighting COVID. We think of those dealing with addictions. As we together, as community, pray for the refuah shlema, their complete recovery. We turn our Siddurim to page 371.
Leave
רפואה שלמה והחלמה מהירה, a complete and a fast recovery. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. כן יהי רצון. Good Shabbos. What a Shabbos. What a Shabbos. So many things to think about, to talk about. So who knows what's the Torah portion we are reading this week? Chayei Sarah. This Torah portion is called, let me know if you can hear me well because my microphone is slightly falling. I hope that now is okay. So this Torah portion is called The Life of Sarah. Chayei Sarah. And we will talk about Sarah tomorrow. Today, we will talk a little bit about Sarah. We'll talk about 3 different stories. 2 of them happen in this Torah portion, and 1 of them happened in the last Torah portion. Do you happen to remember the name of the last Torah portion, the one that we read last week?
That Vayera.
Vayera. Yes, Vayera. He will see. And so let me tell you 3 stories, and then 1 value, and then another 2 values. Let's see if we can put all of them together toward the end of our conversation. So the first story is the first story of Parashat Vayera. Abraham is sitting at the entrance of his tent, and he is recovering. Recovering from what? Recovering from his own Brit Milah, his circumcision, his entrance to the covenant. And as he's sitting at the entrance of his tent, there is a very important figure that comes to fulfill, to perform the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, of visiting the sick. And it's no less than God. God is sitting with Abraham and performing the mitzvah of visiting the sick, when all of a sudden, Abraham, Vayera, he will see that there are 3 strangers coming from the desert, and as he sees them, he stands up and runs toward them, and immediately brings them home, takes care of them, feeds them, and he is hospitable toward them. Now, the end of this story is known for most of you. These 3 strangers, they are actually angels, and they announce what will be later the birth of Isaac. And so the story tells us that Sarah, Sachka, she laughed. And you could say that that's because she was old and she didn't believe that she would have a child in such an old age. On the other hand, because she thought that this child will bring so much laughter, so much joy to her life. There is a very interesting thing in this story. Number 1 is that Abraham, in order to perform the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, leaves God behind. And some people could say, how he could do such a thing? To leave God behind. Other people will say that God is a dynamic encounter, and as soon as he recognizes someone who is in need or people that are in need somewhere else, God is there. And so he needed to run in that direction in order to continue being with the divine presence. God was acting with kindness toward Abraham, the mitzvah of Bikur Cholim, of visiting the sick, and Abraham fulfills the mitzvah, which is also a mitzvah of kindness, of welcoming the guest. And so does Sarah. And the outcome of running toward and being kind is the blessing of continuity, of the birth of Isaac. Now, fast forward, this Torah portion, Chayei Sarah, tells us at the beginning of the Torah portion about the death of Sarah. And we will talk about that tomorrow. But then Abraham decides that he needs a wife for his son. And he sends his loyal servant Eliezer. The Talmud names him Eliezer later on because in the Torah he has no name. He is a servant. He sends him to their hometown to find a wife for Yitzchak. And so he goes. And as he goes, this Eliezer, which could be, I don't know, a character in a play of Shalom Aleichem, right? Like he's such a good Jew. He goes in his way and he's praying for his master, Abraham. He's praying to God and say, God, please be kind to my master. We need a wife for his son. He's such a compassionate soul as well, right? And he's praying for the man who believes is also a wonderful and kind soul. And as he arrives to this town, he goes to the well, right? Why? Because the well is a place of encounter. And then there is a young girl, a young lady that runs toward him because she understands that he is coming from a journey. And he begs for water. Can you give me a sip of water? He says. And she says, of course. And she gives him water. And as soon as he finishes, he says, and what about my camels? And she says, of course, I will take care of giving water to your camels. Now, points out Rabbi Shaichel something quite important. We know that Abraham's servant left with how many camels? 10. He says a camel drinks about 20 gallons of water. So we are talking of a number that is around 200 gallons of water that Rebecca needed to provide for Eliezer's camels. So this wasn't a mitzvah of 5 minutes or a little act of kindness. These were hours of work. Hours of work. Now, once that is done, he says, well, I'm sure I found the kindest person in earth, and it turns out that they are family and they are connected to each other, and so they go to Rebecca's parents and they have a conversation. Rebecca agrees to go and get married with Isaac, and so they, a day later, undertake their journey back to meet Isaac. Now, the Torah tells us that Isaac is outside praying. And as he sees Rebecca, also he comes toward her. People coming toward each other, right? And welcome each other with kindness. Rebecca is so excited that she falls from her horse. It could happen, right? It would happen to me, certainly. Now, Eliezer introduces them, and he tells Isaac, listen, there's no woman like her. And he tells her everything that she did to help him and his servants and his camels. And the story says that Isaac agrees, decides to take Rebecca as his wife and love her, and they go to Sarah's tent. Now, the Midrash tells us, Bereshit Rabbah, tells us that at the moment that Rebecca enters Sarah's tent, something magical happens. The Midrash tells us that there used to be a cloud above Sarah's tent, and that when Sarah died, that cloud disappeared. Now, do we know a cloud from somewhere else in the Torah? Of course you do a cloud from somewhere else in the Torah. You know the cloud that accompanied the children of Israel in their journey throughout the desert. And that cloud symbolized the divine presence, the Shekhinah. When Sarah died, the divine presence disappeared. And as soon as Rebecca enters Sarah's tent, the cloud returns. And then we learn that a journey can begin. Now, I want to point out a few components on these three stories. Number one is that each of these characters is waiting outside, is ready to go to an encounter. Number two is that each of these encounters is described by a high level of kindness. And number three is that kindness does two things. The first one is that kindness brings healing. Isaac was quite broken. He lost his mother. He had a very difficult situation with his father. And I think that Eliezer, Abraham's servant, knows very well that the only thing that will bring healing to Isaac's life is to find the kindest person. Someone who will be willing to give him unconditional love, who won't depend on what others do in order to provide love. That love will be a part of her personality, and even when she's in the middle of nowhere, in the well, when her parents are not looking at her, and she meets a perfect stranger, she will be willing to offer her heart. Kindness brings healing. And the second one, which is a very important one, because we often as Jews, we ask ourselves, how will our people continue? We ask ourselves about Jewish continuity, how we will battle all kind of real challenges that we have. I don't know, the diaspora itself, or anti-Semitism, or disconnection, lack of engagement. The Torah tells us again and again that the key for Jewish continuity, as we learn from Abraham running toward the strangers, as we learn from Rebekah running toward Eliezer, and as we learn from Isaac and Rebekah running toward each other, the key for Jewish continuity, the key to have the divine presence with us, the key is kindness. The key is to run toward each other with unconditional love. So praying that we find the ability to step out, to stand at the gates of our tents and to look at each other, and to run toward each other and to offer our hearts. We will think of this Shabbat, Parashat Hayei Sarah. Shabbat Shalom. We turn our study into page 586.
אל לבביך,
אל לבביך,
כי
נאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Last Saturday, a giant died. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the great rabbi of Britain, the great rabbi of England, passed away. And I can't tell you what a loss this is for the Jewish people. What a hole he leaves in the Jewish world. Rabbi Sachs was such a fantastic thinker, fantastic scholar. Every time that I would encounter a topic that I couldn't deal with in the Torah, or that would be particularly challenged, I would go directly to see what he had to say about that specific topic, about that specific Torah portion. His wisdom and his kindness were truly endless. Thank God we are gifted with many books, many writings, many video recordings and podcasts. So we will be able to keep learning. And he left a series for the entire year. For those that might want to listen to him, you can still listen to his speeches about the Torah portion for this year. A bunch of speeches that actually are a recopilation from previous things that he wrote. So you can, on a weekly basis, listen to him. If you don't know him, it's a great opportunity to learn about him and with him. So we are thinking of his memory. One more thing. Last week we remembered 25 years of the assassination of Prime Minister of Israel, Yitzhak Rabin. Every time that we remember his tragic death, we think about the man and the legacy. We also think about our ability to speak to each other, and what a terrible thing is when we lose that ability, and when we use Jewish tradition to justify our hatred. We're a tradition of love, but people hate. People also love. And you can use our tradition to justify your hatred. We are reminded that the best use that we can do of our tradition is tikkun olam, is to rectify this world, to bring healing to this world, to bring kindness to this world, and to engage in doing peace, in making peace. Remember those that are crying for their beloved ones that are in the first 7 days of mourning. We want to acknowledge also those that are during the first 30 days of mourning, Shloshim, and those that are during the first 11 months of mourning. We also want to acknowledge those that have a yortzeit this week, an anniversary of the passing of a beloved one. As we turn our Sidurim to page 598 for Mourner's Kaddish. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמה דיברה חירותה, בימליך מלכותה, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, באמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולמי אלמיה. יתברך, בישתבח, ביתפאר, ביתרמם, ביתנשא, ביתהדר, ביתעלה, ביתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה, בין כל ברכתה ושילתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירם בעלמה, באמרו אמן.
Amen.
יש להם הרבה מן שמיה, בחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, באמרו
אמן.
אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, באמרו אמן. May the memories of your beloved ones be always a blessing in your life. So, two announcements, important announcements. Number one, on Sunday, we will be celebrating Mitzvah Day. Oh, look at that. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Look at the things that we can do. So, in this direction, please, please participate in our campaigns, participate in our wish to be a part of our wish of bringing some light to our city. And this is us standing at the entrance of our tent and running toward each other with kindness. This is us saying, this is not just about words, this is what we do, this is who we are. And so we will be also visiting people that are dealing with illness. We have a list of people that we will be visiting their homes. And if you would like to have a visit and you might not be in our list, please let us know and you will have a visit. If you are far away, you might have a Zoom visit, but you will have a visit on Sunday. Gabriel and I, we will be visiting some people in our community and sharing some words of blessing and some words of prayer together. And we will have volunteers working here on our campus. We will have people connecting through our Zoom platform so they can participate in filling this mitzvot as well. And also, that morning, we will have our sisterhood branch, so lots of communal things will be happening that day. On Monday, at 12 p.m., I start a new space called Isha. Isha means woman, remarkable woman in Jewish tradition. I feel that some of our female characters in the Torah are less explored. As, for example, Rebecca, that we just spoke about, or Sarah. What about Eve? Have you heard about Lilith? Have you heard about women in the Talmud? Do you know the name of any remarkable woman in the Talmud? So, they exist in our tradition. They're important figures, and we need to commit to learn about them because they have wonderful teachings. So join me on Monday at 12 p.m. If you haven't registered yet for the class, reach out to our temple office, to Lindsay Esco, our operations person, and she will be very happy to share with you a link to participate in that class. So with that information shared, we'll take a moment for blessings. We'll turn our series to page 122, I think. 22 or 24?
22.
22. This is unusually right. Okay. We'll take my Kiddush. ויערב ויבוקר יום השישי ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. סברי חבריי וחברותיי ברוך אתה ה' אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ברצה בנו, בשבת קודשו, באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת, באותנו קידשת, עם כל העמים, בשבת קודשך, באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. חיים. לחיים, לחיים. As we start to conclude this evening of Shabbos, we make sure that no one leaves this space, this virtual but very real space that we share together, that we create together, our community, without being touched by a blessing. We take the millennia-old words of our tradition, a legacy of loving kindness, a legacy of love, and we look at each other, we think of each other, and we share that light, we share that loving kindness that we have, that we experience when we meet each other. We think of the loving hands of our parents and grandparents. We think of our children. As we say to our girls, Yasimech, Elohim, Kesara, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. May God inspire you to be like the mothers of Israel. And to our boys we say, Yasimech Elohim, Kefraim, Kemenashe. May God inspire you to be like the fathers of Israel. And to all of them we say, Yebrechechem, Adonai, Beishmerechem. May God bless you and protect you. Yer Adonai, Panav Elechem, Beichunekem. May God's light shine upon you and may God be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai, Panav Elechem, Beyasim Lechem, Shalom. May you feel God's presence within you always. And may you become a light. May you become a source of healing, a source of loving kindness for this world that is in desperate need of you, of us, of our ability to look at each other, to sit outside and to be willing to meet with each other. May you experience the love of our legacy as a foundation to bring love and to create peace in our world. Adonai os lamoiten, Adonai yavarech et amav, all its peoples. Beshalom. Shabbat shalom.